Oh yes, my Straight Talk family, when you hear that theme song, you know it's time for another edition of Straight Talk, and time for me to bid you a very pleasant night, St. Kitts and Nevis, a very pleasant night to the entire Caribbean region, and in fact, I should say a very pleasant night to the world, because we are on the World Wide Web and we are streaming and beaming all over the world and trying to touch base in particular with our Kittitian and Nevisian diaspora. They are in Africa, there's some of you in Asia, there's some of you in Europe, and there are a whole lot of you all over North America. So I'm at liberty to bid you good night. I am at liberty to say good morning, and I surely will say as well a very pleasant afternoon, because one of such greetings will be applicable to the region in which you now find yourselves. So let me say welcome all to Straight Talk, and I usually thank my Straight Talk family, those who share the link each time, and because of your sharing of the link, we do have what we call our first timers, and we welcome our first timers, and we inform our first timers that Straight Talk is a public service program that facilitates and promotes free expression on all issues of national interest, be they legal, be they environmental, be they technological, social, economic, and or political issues. On Straight Talk, we do have a forum to express yourselves freely. Let's in the process, let's just strive to get St. Kitts and Nevis back to that enviable position of being number one, if not being one of the freest countries in the entire world. I know it is a Himalayan task with the conditions we have here in St. Kitts, but some other time for that. But on this program, we try to raise the level of national consciousness. We try to raise the level of national discourse by alerting our people to their rights, to their responsibilities, and certainly to their obligations. My name is Ian Patches Liburd, and I thank Almighty God for blessing me with yet another opportunity to join you in conversation on another occasion. And I'm duty bound to always remind you that as your host, and in particular for the first timers, I pledge to remain an untiring advocate of truthfulness, as I am always reminded of the words of this famous hymn, which goes something like this: we are called to be God's prophets, speaking for the truth and right, standing firm for godly justice, bringing evil things to light. Let us seek the courage needed, our high calling to fulfill, that we all may know the blessing of the doing of God's will. So absolutely, I can assure you, nothing is watered down on Straight Talk, whether by omission or by exaggeration or by any other mode. We don't try to make things more interesting here. Straight Talk is not about sensationalism. Straight Talk is not about creating excitement, especially at the expense of accuracy, because I consider it my bounden duty to always present the unvarnished truth, I call it, the plain truth, especially when it comes to governance in our country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And through this program, we are joined together with people across our federation and in the diaspora all around the world. Some we know very well, and some we have met. Others we do not know and may never ever meet them. Some will agree with the positions of truth that we advance here on Straight Talk, and some obviously will disagree. And that's fine. That's what we entertain. We entertain diverse views. But hear this, it will sadden me, my Straight Talk family, if we start to become disagreeable. So let's thank Almighty God nonetheless for helping us to understand how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Let us hope and pray for the day when we all sing his praise together. Welcome again, my people, and thanks for those who share the link. I say one more time, because as you bring first timers, please continue to do so. And my Straight Talk family, however, here we try to get you, the first timers. I must inform you as well that Straight Talk is a participative program. By that I mean we entertain your calls, we entertain your emails, and if you're so minded, call in. The numbers are 663-6672, that's a local number, or 646-829-6672. Or for those who like the cloak of anonymity, I call it, we give you access via our email platform, which is straighttalkpatches@gmail.com. That's STRAIGHTTALKPATCHES@gmail.com. Let me welcome our special brigade, our junior brigade, that is. Young Dwayne Tristan always reminds his mom of Thursdays and Mondays. Shama was over there in Frigate Bay. Kevin Hanley over there in Nevis. And I went to Nevis at a fast turnaround in Nevis on Tuesday. I went to pay last respects to my fallen cousin, Juliet Liburd. What a wonderful send-off she had. And Rue Costa over there in Virginia, I think. Good night. And my special lady in St. Louis, good night as well. The obituaries, I don't know of any at the moment. If in the event they are, we extend our condolences to the families who have lost loved ones. But tonight, my Straight Talk family, I have a special guest who is our third Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Sylvester Harris. And he would be here for the entire program. It's our final program for 2023. For that reason, I do not have my usual thesis. I do not have a dissertation for tonight. And safe to say that Dr. Harris will be able to speak without interruptions in this, what we call the People's Parliament. The People's Parliament, we call it Straight Talk. And my Straight Talk family, we normally have our observations in review as well, which is very important to this Straight Talk. But tonight, we will forego that integral part of Straight Talk to ensure that maximum time is given to our guests. With that said, the pleasure is mine, my Straight Talk family, to welcome. The pleasure is mine to say good night, Prime Minister Harris, and welcome back to Straight Talk, my Lord.
Good night, sir. Excellency, thank you very much for having me again tonight.
Go ahead.
Let me extend season greetings. As you said, it's our last airing of this program, and the Christmas is just around the corner. So I want to extend season greetings to all who are tuning to this program, and to wish all of St. Kitts and Nevis all the very best for the season. In particular, I want to extend that special wish to all of my constituents from Bellevue to Atlas in all the communities comprising St. Christopher 7.
Pretty early and on time, Prime Minister. And as I said tonight, my caption for the show, when I remind our Straight Talk family that the third Prime Minister will speak without interruptions. He'll speak without interruptions, and you are here once again in your capacity as the third Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. St. Kitts and Nevis. And the last time you graced us with your presence, I recall it was on the eve of your celebration of 30 years as the elected representative of St. Christopher VII. And I'm sure you'll be able to delineate that constituency better than I, coming from Otleys all the way down the thing to Saddles. But you tell us about that. I am not going to get in trouble with that. Bellevue, okay. And of those 30 years, nonetheless, I believe you have spent approximately 25 or 26 of those years on the government benches in Parliament. I have been fortunate to spend 5 years on the government benches as well. With you in Parliament, I was, honored to be part of your team. But so I can't speak to the other side on the opposition bench, and you're there now. But tell us, or tell me, therefore, tell us as a Straight Dog family, what is life like on the opposition benches now? Timothy Harris, tell us that, please.
Well, interesting with the start. But being on the opposition benches, I think it was second time in a row, or in fact, maybe it's the third time. Because when I started my career as an elected member of Parliament in November of 1993, we were on the opposition until 1995. And when in 2013 I fell out of favor with the Labour administration, I was in opposition from 2013 until 2015, when I returned in an enhanced standing as the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so on this occasion, we are in opposition. I am in opposition, and clearly it's a difference between being on the government benches and on opposition benches. What has not changed, though, has been my love and my sense of the great privilege and honor to be able to serve all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and in particular those of Number 7. Indeed, as a member of Parliament, you consider not only your constituency, but in fact the country. You're obliged to reflect on issues that would impact upon it. And so in opposition, I carry the responsibility, particularly in light of the abnormal situation where the official leader of the opposition is failing in holding the government accountable, is failing in playing the customary role that a leader of opposition would have played in our Westminster model of democracy. And so the burden basically has fallen on my shoulders. It is one that I'm happy to carry on behalf of all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, who really want to see a strong opposition, a strong democracy, and by and large, that the government feet is kept to the fire in terms of its promises and in terms of our own expectations of the kind of society we would wish St. Kitts and Nevis to be.
And I'm happy you raised that, because we've always, it's always been touted that the opposition is really an alternative government in some respects. Isn't that correct?
That is correct in our model.
Now, obviously, coming out of the budget estimates or budget debates just a few days ago, right? And the federal budget is one of the most important policy instruments of any government or every government. And through their budget decisions, our elected leaders would or should fulfill their constitutional responsibilities. They should signal their priorities and manage the federal purse And the budget should reflect decisions to tax and spend, to borrow and to lend and to consume and invest. And those decisions define the size of the federal government and its role in the national economy. And I heard you made mention of this. This is what you said. Wow. Okay, I think, but I heard you made mention. Let's bypass that somewhat. I heard you made mention of the importance of the budget, and you made mention of the duration of the presentation of the budget address, and you also made mention of the credibility, no doubt speaking to its content of that particular budget presentation. And I believe you would have presented several budgets. Not I believe, I know you would have presented several budgets. And when I looked at the budget address in terms of the number of pages, your last budget address, I researched it, it was 47 pages, which you presented in 2.5 hours or perhaps more. You'll tell us that. Last year's budget was 43 pages, 2023 budget. And then this budget address was 62 pages. But the duration in terms of presenting that budget address was a record 5 hours. I mean, what does that tell us, as you said, about the length, the importance, and the credibility of his content?
Well, I would want to focus. Clearly, it was a lengthy budget, and basically was a budget interspersed with a lot of politics, which would normally be, which would not be the norm in the context of the opening presentation of a budget. But that being what it is, I think it was a last-ditch effort by the Prime Minister to seek to gain attention of the public again. I mean, let's face it, in September he had to do a reset, and in December he's faced with having to attempt to do another reset, which tells us something is awry. And what we had was an effort at hype to give people a certain expectation, but all the hype got lost because he fell short in terms of the deliverables that were presented and in terms of the honesty which was lacking in much of the content of the budget.
Well, policy makers therefore use the budget process to establish spending priorities and identify revenues to pay for those activities, and the size and scope of those decisions make the budget process one of the most important and complex exercises in our public policy making. Did you get that out of that presentation?
No, the budget, as you rightly put it, is the most important piece of legislation to come before Parliament outside of, for example, a motion of no confidence. Because, in fact, again, going back to our model of the parliamentary democracy, failure to have a budget pass is equivalent to a vote of no confidence in the government and have a similar consequence. That is why we call in 2012, Douglas wavered in terms of bringing the budget to the parliament because he was not sure what the outcome would be. That is how important a budget is. In fact, if the budget fails, then it means there is no legal basis to continue to exercise spending powers. They become very restrictive because a budget must be passed within, I think, 90 days of the first day of the new year. And failure to have the budget surpass and finalize will have consequence for the government ability to finance its operation, and therefore the government would collapse for want of legal authority to undertake spending. So that is why it's so critical an element of public accountability. And when we begin to look at some of what was being said or proposed, again, we had a credibility crisis. Could you believe the government? Do you believe what they are saying? When you look at what they were able to achieve in 2023, and you see the very things come back undelivered, and they ask us to take them at their word that they are now ready to get them out of the pipeline some 17 months after. And you say, how? How will this be achieved? And this was I think, one of the biggest disappointments in the budget. And there are several other examples very quickly. People expected that the government would have paid a double salary. The case for the double salary was well made. I, in fact, on 2 occasions made that. Everyone accept that St. Kitts and Nevis at this particular moment in time is going through one of its roughest moments. Life is hard and life is miserable for the vast majority of persons, both on St. Kitts and both on Nevis. Almost every sector of the economy is in turmoil. We are in the critical part of the tourism season, and if you go from hotel to hotel, you know that the occupancy rates are down. In fact, in some of the hotels, persons are getting 2 days and 3 days work. And we are at what should be getting into the peak period of the the tourism season. We look at the cruise sector. You speak to the vendors, you speak to the persons who go to the beach to ply their trade, and everyone is giving you the same story of hardship. Nothing is happening. Very little is being spent by the cruise persons. It appears that they are already locked in their pre-booked trips, whether it is the scenic railway or going over on the beach at Carambola, etc., and they have very little liquid cash, as it were, to spend elsewhere and to give support. I went to BlackRock, for example, recently, and I thought that they were having a good deal. I see some tourists down there. When you ask to say, not $1 they spent. They came, they took their photos, they overlooked our beautiful scenery down there of the sea, the black rocks, etc., but no money spent. And that is the message, whether it is the tourism sector or it is in the manufacturing sector. Everybody now has a very sad story to tell. And the question is, does the budget offer a recipe? Does it offer policy prescriptions that would make life better? And the answer is no. Construction, for example, has basically disappeared. Too many contractors, too many masons, too many carpenters. You ask them, they hardly had a good 3 weeks' work in 2023, and nothing has happened. And when we look at 2024, we are not sure. The government had a song and dance about delivering 600 homes, for example, which would have added substantial drive to the construction sector, creating jobs if done well. But how many has the government delivered after nigh 17 months? Not one house has been completed. So could we look to that public sector engagement to help us in the construction industry, which according to the budget presented is down by 9% relative to pre-pandemic period. Indeed, I think it is down by much, much more. Nothing is happening. And if you want the reality, you go to St. Kitts Masonry, you ask them how they're doing. They will tell you things are poor. You go to any other provider of construction materials and they tell you things not good. So the country is going through a very hard and difficult period, and I have no confidence really in the budget prescriptions as outlined to take us to a better place. And that is where the challenge is.
I'm going to come back to the issue of housing as you raised that. But before I go there, in the context of the budget, the Minister of Finance, though, would have tried to make it appear that the 2024 budget will boost the income of the poor people. For example, with the increase in the minimum wage, right? But does that enhance their purchasing power at the supermarket or grocery stores? I mean, these are questions ought to be put forth in terms of the food import costs or costs of food.
That is an important question. The cost of living is high, and really, that has created a new class of persons popularly described as the ultra poor. There are too many families in St. Kitts and Nevis who at this time could ill afford to meet the basic necessities for decent living, whether in terms of food or other household items. They just cannot manage it. There are many families who for days in a week cannot afford to buy food. That is a problem. People are starving and are near starvation. When you go to the alleyways and the byways, that is the harsh reality. There are many people, the working poor, going to work. They do not have enough money to pay their public transportation each day, Monday to Friday. They have a huge bills, arrears of bills, from electricity to water to courts and otherwise. And the income that they are earning does not help them to achieve a sense of decent living. In fact, many are living in fear that the Marshal Bailey will come on their work or come at some inappropriate time and create further humiliation for them. This situation cannot be allowed to continue. And while the minimum wage will in some respect bring a little bit of easement, we have to bear in mind that the prices will continue to go up. And so the offsetting will not be complete in relation to that. And one of the things we know, even now, the prices are eking up, and you have not had the increase that has been promised. Come January, the prices are going up a lot more. In fact, in the parliament, one of the members raised the real scenario that what will happen is that the supermarkets and the other places will just increase their price to deal with the minimum wage. So you are getting it in one hand and the government allows it to be taken away from you, because many businesses, and indeed if we listen to a recent announcement coming out of the chamber, the level of the minimum wage was not what they had proposed. How then will the employer class cope with this? Practical ways. They will cut back on the hours. They may lay off a number of their staff, and they will be very choosy and selective in terms of recruitment, because the government clearly hasn't thought this out. This was a rush to say that they are doing something to deal with their waning popularity. And I believe, given the hardship though, there is and was a need for the minimum wage to rise. I will not gainsay that need. The manner in which was done, the lack of preparation for the community, the lack of understanding by the incompetent government of all the ramifications of it, and therefore having a strategy to prevent the adverse fallout is what is of concern to me and what will be of concern to the people come next year when this is being implemented. When they hear we do not want you this week, we only will take you 3 weeks, because a lot of the employers will not, and they have claimed they are not able to meet that kind of adjustment. And so what is really needed was for the economy to grow in a significant way. And the projection for next year is that the economy will grow much lower than in 2023. So if the economy is not going to have a jump start so that you have an overall cumulative increase in the demand across sectors, then we are going to be in a difficult situation in the country of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is clearly as a result of the incompetence of the government. One thing the government knows how to do: waste our money and fly in. They live abroad. Every occasion they can travel, they will go. Imagine a prime minister in the heart of the most critical element, bill before the parliament, takes off and go to St. Vincent to be, as it were, a sideshow, had no constructive role to play. The principal parties were there. They were there, and we know what their position was before, and the position has not changed. Guyana has not backed down. Venezuela has not backed down. And while it was an important meeting, it did not need our prime minister to, as it were, ignore. No other prime minister would have done that. I have been with them before my stint as the prime minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, serving in the capacity of Minister of Foreign Affairs, and you would not have had this abandonment. You can't leave your parliament in session and say you're gone to be a sideshow just to get a photo up. Doesn't make sense. And it is this recklessness, this lack of dedication to duty at home that is causing a lot of problems, because there's no supervision within the government and there's no acceptance by the ministers that their first duty and first responsibility is to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. So they go on some wild trip. They go on to St. Vincent to visit a marijuana farm. Well, why not visit one in St. Peter's? Why not visit one in Phillips? Why you have to go to St. Vincent? Prime Minister gone on a joyride to visit a marijuana farm in St. Vincent. Nonsense. And then the Minister of Agriculture goes also to visit the said farm. Nonsense and a waste of resources. And what has happened to marijuana? For the last 17 months, no advancement. New staff, new people, and nothing has happened, and nothing will happen, because the people who are there, they are just talkers, not doers, and they do not have a clear view of what they are going to do with the marijuana industry. For them, it's just about smoke. What have they done except creating some cafes that you could go and you can smoke? As if that is the priority in terms of the development agenda. So those are the concerns, really, the lack of realism, the lack of policy coherence, etc., etc., and the failure of the government to be truthful. Whether it is on the CBI program, the press gets a runaround. Go and ask Mikey Martin. Mikey Martin hides when you come. He sends out a message, I'm not there. Let them tell you what you want. You go back to the Prime Minister, who is responsible. And in this promised new day of transparency, you can't tell you how many applications have been approved, the nationalities for whom they have been approved, since the issue of nationality came to the surface, particularly since the Ukraine-Russia war. People want to know who are becoming the beneficiaries and the holders of these passports, and they are not being transparent at all about these things.
As you say, transparency, Dr. Harris, and you mentioned the housing sector briefly earlier. So perhaps we may just go back to that housing sector, which brings us or zooms us into your own presentation in the Parliament on, was it Wednesday? I think it was, or Thursday. Thursday it was. And it seems as though you open a can of worms when you actually spoke the truth, and you mentioned the dishonesty of some of these politicians or those leaders in government, because you did make mention as it relates to the housing sector, and you did speak, I recall, so I like to bring our people the facts, and this is what you said in the Parliament.
And we accepted that recommendation. Nothing new. Ready for action. And 17 months after, we are talking about the same things that we talk about would happen. We talked about them in December 2022 as being actionable in 2023. And in 2023 now, we are again coming back with the same thing, and we have not advanced them in significant ways, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have to be careful not to just simply be playing on the emotions of our people. Same can be said about the housing project, this mysterious housing project involving the NHC, the government, and a foreign unknown company with no track record of delivering quality housing solutions.
How do you know that?
Well, do the research, Google it. Google it and you will see. No track record does that company has in delivering housing solutions, even in its own country. And yet they get the biggest public sector contract for housing being awarded to them, Madam Speaker, and not one opportunity to tender by local persons. And what has come of that? What has come of that, Madam Speaker? Not one house has been completed to date.
I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 3.
The member for number 7 needs to correct the record. There has not been a public contract awarded to any housing developer. Needs to correct the record. It is not a public contract.
Madam Speaker, the contract is between NHC. NHC is 100% owned by the government. NHC has the full backing of the government, and it is the government that has supported the project by providing all the necessary concessions for the project to go.
On a point of order, just so for clarity, there will be no public funds used in that particular project. It is misleading to suggest that this is a public contract.
It's very interesting, though, our third Prime Minister, because the Minister himself, Minister of Housing, who was rather quiet in response to that point of order, said this, I think, in the very Parliament some time ago.
Today, as the Minister responsible for housing and human settlement, I am pleased to formally announce that the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and National Housing Corporation NHC has signed a contract with East Coast Housing Development, a Trinidadian-based developer, to finance and deliver 2,400 affordable smart homes over a period of 4 years, 600 of which will be made available each year.
So, who is telling the truth, Prime Minister? The minister said a contract was signed between the government and NHC, and you got chastised in the parliament for stating the facts.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
That's one of the travesty that took place on that particular day. And I'm happy that you have played the tape, although I should say the sound was a little muted. Next time, perhaps you could increase the volume. Now, the tape that you played.
With Jeffrey?
Yes, but Dr. Handley made the point and basically give the credence and the truth and vindication to what I've said. The contract is between NHC, the government, and East Coast Housing, the foreign company out of Trinidad. And clearly it must be. There are also other evidence of that, where the Attorney General at some point in the past talking about it said, well, if the government not satisfied when there was this outcry about the houses, he himself basically said that the government was a party to it, that if the government was dissatisfied with the houses, or NHC was, they will bring them to an end. Well, how the government could bring something to an end about which it is not involved and it is not a part. And further, the point that I made still stands. The government is contingently liable for any indebtedness attributed to the NHC as a consequence of this. And that is why in the Director of Audit report, NHC's indebtedness is being flagged as a matter of concern to the community, because ultimately, as she explains it, it is the government who will carry the burden. Just as the federal government is exposed by over 450 million indebtedness by the Nevis Island administration, so with respect to NHC, so with respect to any of the statutory bodies, that the government in the end will be the one that hold the burden, carries the burden of these entities. So you can't separate the government. And it was really a dishonest proposition that had been put forward by the member for number 3.
Well, in fact, you mentioned that, and we can confirm this, because this is what the Attorney General, disgraced as he may be, said. He said this.
There are certain parts of a contract that involve commercial aspects, trade secrets that you cannot release, even if it's a contract with a government. This company might have competitors, and the competitors might be able to get an unfair advantage. It's not about hiding anything. There are certain things that the public cannot have access to. There are certain parts of a contract that involve commercial aspects, trade secrets that you cannot release, even if it's a contract with a government. This company might have competitors, and the competitors might be able to get an unfair advantage. It's not about hiding anything. There are certain things that the public cannot have access to.
So he was protecting them, and he did say this.
2 model homes will be built that the contract contemplates. During the construction of those model homes, the local contractors will get to learn the modern technique, the special technique that is being used for these reinforced concrete slab homes. If the government is not satisfied with the homes or the construction, whether they could withstand serious hurricanes and earthquakes and so forth, which the government has experts who can verify that, and whether NHC is not satisfied with the homes, then the contract comes to an end.
Well, so he did confirm it's a government contract. What about the guarantee?
Yes.
Isn't there a guarantee that the government had to post?
Well, my understanding is that the government posted a guarantee somewhere in the region of about $150 million or thereabout, which is a significant sum. But again, no transparency.
But this led to...
You cannot have the largest public sector contract. And that was my point. It was a public sector contract. Once it involves one of the statutory corporations, it is a public sector contract, and there is no bidding, in relation to that particular project. That is highly unacceptable, especially for those who told the untruth that they were concerned about good governance.
And
I'm seeing the photo very well.
Yes, I didn't hear for a moment. But that, in fact, speaks to the government well represented, even the groundbreaking ceremony. But this is what part of what led to the end of your presentation in the Parliament, because you were being interrupted each time, and each time you seem to be losing your time. The amount of, and the points of order is the things that really should bother us in terms of a point of order. Because, I mean, were these points of orders being raised?
No, they were not points of order. And the speaker, in my view, erred badly in recognizing them as a point of order. And I attempted to advise her based on my 30-year history as a member of Parliament, the second longest member in the federal Parliament. So I must know something if it's only the practice of the Parliament. And I've gone through maybe some 6 speakers before her, going back to Buchanan and so on, and you count them all, come up, Marcella, you had Curtis Martin, you had so many. You had Franklin Brandt and so on, you had Perkins. So the practice then is what I would be familiar with. And I say that the point of order was not really a point of order. In fact, many times, even in the clip that you played just about, the member for number 3 was saying point of order for clarity. Well, point of order can't be for clarity. And a member, according to the rules, need not yield to a point of explanation. A member is obliged to yield to a point of order. And the point of order must speak to a breach of a specific rule or practice. It can't be because you disagree with what Dr. Harris is saying, or you do not like what Dr. Harris is saying. You say, point of order. This is what it should be. Nonsense. The speaker ought not to have allowed that. And the speaker must make a ruling. And it is within the discretion of the speaker. If you see someone repeatedly getting up and obstructing a member to say, no, I will not allow you, particularly bearing in mind how the Parliament is configured, that ultimately, if you are on the government side, the person who will do the wrap-up have the opportunity to deal, and it is his responsibility as the mover of the bill in the wrap-up to deal with any matter that was adverse or in conflict with his presentation. Again, that is a discretion having regard to parliamentary practice going, 300 years or so. And that is what our model of democracy says. So when you see he got up about 20 times or 15 times, nonsense. Oh, that is not what I say. That is not what a point of order is. A point of order, according to May's parliamentary practice, according to everything with respect to normal Commonwealth parliamentary procedure, must go to a breach of a rule or well-established practice. That is what a point of order. There was no rule to which he could point to. And so the point of order that was allowed, in my view, did not allow for fairness to have occurred. And they robbed me deliberately of my time. And the speaker ought to have considered returning that time that was taken out of my speech to their interruption. To their interruption too repeatedly and too excessively, not for the speaker to have noticed, because everyone listening took offense at the repeated interruption, which was nonsense points they were making, attempting to be political. They had speaker coming after me in the member for number 6. They had the move of the bill coming after me. They then could have dealt with these matters, not this incessant, frequent, and out of order request for disruption of my speech.
But contrary to what I concur with you, but contrary to what we are saying here, the speaker obviously had a different view when she said this.
And very quickly, I will get there, Madam Speaker, save for the interruption that I'm getting with respect to this.
Saying that, I have to stop you. Yeah. You keep saying that tonight as though the members who rise don't have a right to do so. Every member in this house has a right to interruption as long as it is in accordance with section 42 of the standing orders. I don't appreciate the impression that you're giving that the members don't have that right.
And very quickly, I will.
But section 42 is very clear, though, Prime Minister.
Section 42 is very clear, and again, the Speaker heard. The Speaker heard. It could be her inexperience, because I have looked at 42, and 42 speaks to interruptions, but it doesn't. Rather than encouragement to interrupt. No member shall interrupt another member except by rising to a point of order when the member speaking shall resume his or her seat, and the member interrupting shall simply direct attention to the point which he or she desires to bring to notice and submit it to the speaker or chairperson for decision. In other words, the speaker must make a ruling whether this is a point of order. There is no right given to interruption. In fact, there is a constraint on the right to interrupt. And that is why it says that you shall not interrupt another member except on the point of order. And therefore, every disruption and every interruption of a member has to be considered, is this a valid point of order? Or as the member for number 3, Congress Maynard, kept saying, for clarity, for this, for that. Having gotten attention by saying that it is a point of order. And indeed, I want to just add this very quickly, that when you look at section 42 and 43, content of speeches, and you go to 47, rules for members not speaking. So I am on the floor. The member for number 3 ought to remain silent. That is what the rule said. A member present in the National Assembly during the debate shall A, enter or leave the National Assembly with decorum. B, not read books, newspapers, letters, or other documents save they relate to the business before the National Assembly. C, and this is critical, shall maintain silence. Shall maintain silence while another member is speaking, and shall not interrupt, contrary to what the speaker was purporting to have us believe. The rule for members not speaking says you shall not interrupt except in accordance with these standing orders. And the standing orders only give one reason for you to interrupt a member who is already on his feet, and a point of order. And to find whether there is an abuse of the point of order, you go to page 2, SRO 43, which speaks about contempt. It shall be out of order to use offensive and insultive language, etc., etc. You must refer to people by the names of their constituency. You shall not impute improper motive. Those are the rules.
But shouldn't this
Content of secrets that would provoke a claim to a breach of the rules.
But when the point of
breach of rules.
when the point of order is raised, though, shouldn't there be a ruling on the speaker? Because there was no ruling whatsoever. I mean, he just got up and started speaking again.
Well, the speaker erred in that regard. In fact, the member should really wait until the speaker acknowledges, and the member who is already on his feet, who has already been acknowledged to speak, must continue and should continue to speak until and if the speaker gives way to the member who is requesting the floor, then you pause and allow that process to take place. These things were not observed faithfully in the context of the parliament, and that is why the parliament really got itself in the commotion, and it became a national outrage and a national disgrace. And one of the reasons I want to make this last point, if we accept what the speaker says is true, that members have a right to interruption, we will have no order in our house. Because every time you get up, a member then can interrupt. Then what would be the point of saying order, order, member, order, order? Is because order must be maintained in the house. That you cannot have people willy-nilly rising and making the point of interruption. And that is why standing order number 47 says, you must hold your peace. And it says, maintain silence while another member is speaking and shall not interrupt. So then you have to look at the totality, not just a clause that talk about interruption, and even that doesn't support what the speaker says, because he said no member shall interrupt another except on a point of order. So there's no absolute right given there to interrupt, and it doesn't make sense. It defies logic, because we will have a house of disorder. Interruption after interruption, meaninglessly, frivolously, and set the house down the path that the last sitting at which I attended went, a house of chaos and disrepute.
Well, notwithstanding all of that, this is what happened eventually.
This dispatch would have gone to the Ministry of Finance, for its input. That was a pattern we always used with respect to project, because that is where the law says we must get the input. When we get the input, it's another question how we proceed, and we would have sent that off. What would be the normal response, Madam Speaker?
Honourable Member, you are out of time.
Yes. Could I be allowed, Madam Speaker, an extension of time to just wrap up?
Well, the question is that the member of St. Christopher 7 be allowed to speak for a further period, not exceeding 30 minutes. Those in favour? Those in favour? Honourable Member for St. Christopher 7. Honourable Member, in accordance with Rule 40 of the Standing Orders, the question has to be put to the honourable members, and there must be a vote in favour of extending the time. The question was put, there were no votes in favour, and so you will not be able to be given the allotted time in accordance with the rules. Respectfully, your time is up.
Could you allow me a few minutes just to wrap up and bring this to an end? Even 10 minutes, Madam Speaker.
For the record, Section 40, subsection 4. In a debate on the annual financial statement and budgetary proposals, subject to paragraph 5 hereof, a member shall not speak for more than 90 minutes unless he or she requests and obtains an extension of time in the manner prescribed by paragraphs 1 and 2. Paragraphs 1 and 2. After this period has elapsed, and thereupon the speaker shall permit him or her to speak for a further period not exceeding 30 minutes. Subsection 1 speaks, a member moving a motion shall not, I'll read all of the rules so that it is on the record. A member moving a motion shall not speak for more than 2 hours on such motion unless he or she requests and obtains an extension of time. That is in relation to regular debates. Subsection 2. On such request being made, the speaker shall, without debate, put the member's request to the National Assembly, and if there is a majority of votes in favor thereof, the speaker shall permit the member to speak for a further period not exceeding 30 minutes.
But, Prime Minister, the section 52 of the rules, it speaks to the collection of votes. And she keeps saying majority, but a question was put, there was no response, no comment whatsoever. Absolutely none. Yeah. There were no objections.
There were no objections. All right.
Right, no objections. So I myself even asked myself, why did you raise this question of division? Because the section 52 speaks to, in fact, the collection of the votes. And it says, at the conclusion of the debate, any question the speaker or chairperson shall put that question for the decision of the National Assembly and shall collect the votes, or shall collect the voices, beg your pardon, of the ayes and the noes. And there were no ayes, there were no noes. So I don't understand what this thing about majority is saying. But that to me, it was very clear. So I don't understand. I mean, it baffled me. Because if you're silent, then you do not object.
Well, that is the point, and that is why I asked for the division, so that it could go on the record clearly who was, because the speaker, in my view, misguided herself in taking the silence to mean that it was a no, they had voted against the extension of time. On the basis of their silence, she could have also gone just as equally to the opposite direction. They had no objection to my speaking, and therefore she would have allowed the request. But even assuming that she was right, she erred, in my view, again, because she should have taken account the very rule that she read. It was misapplied because I had not spoken for 90 minutes. The interruptions ought to have been taken out, because that was not my using of my time. And in fact, there was precedent for it. She gave the member for number time back his time, taking out all the objections. Why didn't she apply the same rule? Several times the public would have heard her saying, well, your time start again. Never once did she apply equal treatment in my case. And she went to a negative interpretation of silence when a positive could have equally hold. And as I said, also, my time, I hadn't used up the hour and a half that was allotted to me. Members opposite deliberately robbed me of nigh a half an hour of my time, and it would have been magnanimous and gracious for them, even on division, to acknowledge that and accept the pattern that was there. It was also in the judgment of the speaker, in my view, having regard for the 30 years I have been there. I have seen under Perkins, for example, people ask, and Perkins say, well, I'll give you 10 minutes to wrap up. The government side, if they did not support it, he uses discretion because it is only fair. And again, when you go back to the whole history of the role of an impartial speaker, for that is what the speaker should be, an impartial speaker. Indeed, in the tradition from which it comes, when it comes to the UK and you are the speaker, it is that the speaker will go up unopposed whenever there is even a general election. So highly is the impartiality of the speaker held. So highly that if the speaker is a member of a political party, he or she would withdraw that membership once they become a speaker, because they have to give the sense of impartiality. You go and you research it and you hear that. Even they said that the speaker avoid eating with other members in the parliament lounge to preserve the appearance.
Yes.
Because it's not just that you are, but the appearance of independence must always pervade everything that a speaker does.
Okay, it's I'm sorry.
That is the situation that you have pointed out. I was robbed of my time deliberately by the interventions from the other side, and I was not given back my time.
It's 13 past the 9 o'clock hour. In the event you have just joined me, I have the third Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris, who will be with us for the entire program. There's no straight talk without your calls. We do include your calls and we'll include your emails, because that's what straight talk is all about. The listeners, the emailers, the callers, you are the ones who make straight talk. But before we go to the lines, there are quite a lot of issues we still have to cover. And I want to speak to, as you referred to it, the bad economic conditions here in St. Kitts. You said this.
And better friendships, and will it be beneficial to all concerned? The member for number 5 did a good job in reflecting the sentiments of the majority of people in our country. 2023 has been a bad year for most persons. In fact, there were many complaints across the country, not just coming from those in opposition to the government, but even their own supporters, about the economic conditions since the first quarter of 2023. And the widespread complaints continued even after the failed attempt to reset, coming belatedly sometime in September. The economic conditions in our country have worsened. They have worsened for the vast majority of persons, in my view, on account of the arrogance, the incompetence, and the recklessness of this administration. And sometimes when you listen to the members opposite, you wonder, are they living here? Or they're living, as we would say, in local language, they're living away. They are not in sync with the realities. And that is why we have always been having this incoherence in policy and action. And that is why the member for number 5 was right when he said for the last day or for this year, because we are still in 2023, what has really happened to significantly advance the quality of life for the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis? Madam Speaker,
I'm sure
it is clear.
I'm sure that there's concurrence that things are bad. But do you see any improvements? You spoke to the arrogance, the incompetence, and the recklessness. Before we go to the lines, I want you to address our bad economic situation and what, if there's any hope, having listened to budget presentation or budget address for 5 hours, and even the wrap-up, I think, was about 2 hours, so 7 hours and more. The Minister of Finance made his presentations. Is there any hope for us?
Well, I am not hopeful, but I hope that my fears do not crystallize, because I love the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I see myself as the champion for the poor, vulnerable, the elderly, the needy, and the young people. And that is why for the last 30 years I've remained resilient in the body politic, in the parliament, because people know that I am a genuine person. And I've made tremendous sacrifice to myself, to my family, basically from my involvement. But I look back with no regret, because there have been moments of highs, and of course in life there are the usual ups and downs. So the vicissitudes have come. But I am not hopeful. I can't be hopeful, for example, if I take the sector of agriculture. Almost every day you hear that there is chaos, disorganization, bad management in the Ministry of Agriculture, from the highest levels to the lowest. How could I have faith when every time I interact with the farmers, whether when I make my visits to the public market or I go out and meet them where they're at, and they lament the lack of support, the lack of sensitivity to them? How could you feel hopeful that 2024, with the same people at the top, that things will get better for the farmers? What they haven't delivered in 17 months now, will they be able to do it in 2024? Will they be any more disrespectful to the farmers, or they will be less? Will they be humble? Will they travel less and pay more attention to what is happening on the ground? I do not believe that we will have meaningful changes in this regard, because this is what those in leadership have become. They have become arrogant, and they are inexperienced and incompetent, and yet each of them say each one is an expert at harassing people, an expert at not doing the right thing, an expert at not understanding the protocols of the civil service. When you have people, simpletons, I would call them, describing themselves as experts, and they don't even understand the alphabet from A to Z, in a manner of speaking. I mean, that kind of arrogance would lead to problems, because they will not listen to advice. You hear the president of the Cooperative Farmers Corp speaking about the bad treatment. Nothing as strange. You see letters on social media. You hear the cries of Victoria Bocom, who set out the entire budget for the year, and people do not understand what is going on. When we listen to what we hear is happening in tourism, although there have been some movement going forward, we talk about sustainability, and in the end, we want to know that those who are visiting are spending. If they are not spending at Blackrock, and they are not spending at the beaches, how will their coming here trickle down into the economy? And what does it say about the build-out of community tourism? It says very little will happen. And so we need to have another reset, perhaps the third and final one, before the people get rid of them, using their own words and slogan. What happened in 2023 must never be allowed to reoccur in 2024. This condescending tone which ministers speak to people and speak to citizens and residents of the country must come to an end. So the growth drivers not working out. You listen to the statement of the mover of the appropriation bill, and you look at the manufacturing sector, and jobs are not there. And after 17 months, and there are truths about having investors coming, they tell us that they are still looking for the investors. And the investors suddenly are keeping a far distance from them. So if tourism is not going to have significant growth, significant spend power, it's one thing for persons to come, but the critical element, and we need them to come, and we will welcome them here, is whether or not they have spending power when they come to make a difference in all the services and for all the products that we have on hand to offer them. Tourism is major, and we need to see more of that. We need to see more, all of our hotels having significant occupancy. Tourism then, lackluster performance. Agriculture, nothing happened. I mean, I have been Minister of Agriculture, so I know. And when they begin to talk about reducing the food import bill, and we can't even achieve self-sufficiency in bananas, we have a problem. When the Prime Minister attended a function in Liburd this yourself, the farmers and fisher folks complained nothing was happening for the fisheries. Carp down in their pay. Will there be a turnaround in 2024? I wish so for the suffering people, but I do not have much confidence in them. So agriculture is out of it. Tourism will be lackluster if the pattern that now exists continues. We go to construction, a lot of things in the pipeline. Do we have the capacity to implement them? That is another matter. But this government will have things in the pipeline. Hold them up for bad-mindedness. Hold them up because they're part of the legacy of the Harris-led administration. So they held up, for example, the solar farm project, and suddenly at long last they can't find nothing wrong with it. They came back shamefacedly and said that they have renegotiated it and it will start mid-2024 and be available in 2025. Wasted. Now 2 years of our time, 2 years of opportunities for people. Over 200 people had been interviewed and approved for work on that solar farm project as drivers and administrators, the full range of specialized and non-specialized services to be offered. Those people lose out because we had an incompetent government, and instead of moving forward, it is looking back to find things at fault so that it can blame it on the past government. At long last, they have come back to tell us the project is ready and they have made some cosmetic changes which they try to hide. But the people must ask, why did we go through this? Why do we have these higher rates of electricity bill on which we could have saved had the government done the right thing? And we could go through project after project that we left them. The school in Molyneux, nothing happened. The Philip Slope project, nothing happened. And all those other roads, you started a wonderful job with getting these project roads paved. You went beyond that and achieved what no other minister of public infrastructure has been able to do. The resurfacing of the entire Island Main Road. You rehabilitated and brought a solution to the problem at Old Road Bay. And we could go on and on, that will take a lifetime. But importantly, we had persons of action, persons who were focused. And I do not believe that in this present group of so-called experts, we have people who are committed to public service. These are about themselves, clocking up miles. That's what they want. Being in a hotel somewhere, drinking their milk or camel milk.
Camel milk.
You can't afford even to buy the bunny milk here in St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a disconnect. And I believe that disconnect is permanent, and it will be left to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to clamp down hard on this government. For this government has been hurting our people knocking about our people, and it is time for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to take a stand, and fight back against the injustices, social injustice, economic injustice in this, the land that we love.
And I'm glad to raise that. It just jogged my memory, as I saw something live on social media yesterday, where this resurfacing of a new apron, right, and losing, as I think you refer to it as the revisionist government.
Revisionist, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because
yes.
You must recall that when we got into office, the airport runway was in such bad shape, and we resurfaced the entire runway. The ECHO wrote about the lighting and wanted us to restrict night landings. We put in brand new airport lighting, solar lighting, modern lighting. We fixed the Alpha, the Bravo, and the Charlie taxiways, and the Western apron. In fact, it was the COVID-19 that stopped us from doing the eastern portion of the apron. And you see this yesterday about the resurface, the new talking about the new apron. What are they talking about? Why are they behaving this way?
As if it's the first time,
Yes.
and as if repairs and renovation are not part of management.
Yes.
It's like the Minister of Education go to Parliament to tell us that he fixed a bathroom or toilet.
Yeah.
I mean, they just demean the country when those are the things that are normal and routine. But for them, it is a big prize to have done that. Country cannot advance that way. The ministers must raise their standard of thinking and appreciation, conduct, and behavior. And that is where they are falling short in a very significant way. And that is what I refer to in part as the arrogance, the disconnect. They speak things because all they're interested in really, go up at the airport, do a photo op, the hype of it. The country needs more than that.
It's getting to the bottom of the hour at 9:30. We have no limitations on there's no speaker is gonna shut down. We don't have to ask. There's no restriction on things we say and our time. But there's no straight talk, as I said before, without an input from our callers and our emailers. So we're gonna go to the lines momentarily, and we must remind you again that the numbers are on your screen. We have 649-829-6672. That's our overseas number. We also have our local number, which is 663-6672. And our email address is straighttalkpatches@gmail.com. May I just implore you that when I open the lines and do so in a few seconds, I anticipate that you will respect others. And of course, to do that, you must first respect yourselves. I want us to be fair to each other. And the things we say, let us, in saying and doing those things, ensure that it will be beneficial to all concerned. And in that process, let us strive to build a kinder, gentler St. Kitts and Nevis. With that said, I go to the lines. My Straight Talk family, it's 8:30, right to the bottom of the hour. Caller, I want to thank you for holding your live. Hello, caller.
Thank you, Patches. Good night, one and all. Good night, Mr. Former Prime Minister.
Good night, sir.
I did not listen the whole take on Parliament, but for the clips that I listened to, I will go straight to the speaker and the member in opposition tree. First of all, parliamentary procedures should be guided very keenly. And I think That interruption, I'm not going to say point of order. That was a point of interruption. I think he should have, if he wanted to make a point, he requests point of information instead of point of order. And then the speaker, when there was a vote for an additional 30 minutes, and she requested for a vote, and there was no vote. There was no vote, so it was a unanimous decision to allow you to speak. So I think she miscalculated what it was meant. I would have taken that to be, it is okay for you to allow your 30 minutes that you requested for, secondly. But you know what? This parliament is some kind of Mickey Mouse playing in representing our country. Because there are always problems. Okay? Always problems. Someone is against. Why can't everyone get along and do the work for the people? The people does not need this kind of behavior. They are not conducting themselves professional. What kind of parliament we have? Okay? I don't see any respect for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're opposition or not. But you know what? They probably is thinking what goes around comes around. Tit for tat. But I will hope that Parliament will go on with the people's business, create the people's business. Right now in St. Kitts, people need food to eat. Food. And if they don't have food to eat, they're going to starve. And if they're going to starve, they're going to die. So why not taking care of the people? Give the people food to eat and water to drink.
Okay. Any other?
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your input. We go straight back to the lines. Caller, thank you for holding your live.
Mr. Patches, greetings.
Greetings, my brother.
I'm very good. Greetings, Mr. Prime Minister.
Greetings.
Mr. Patches,
so,
from listening the budget debates, I get a sense you will have the former Prime Minister tonight. So your voice is very sensitive to what's going on in our country. Anyone who pays the IMF debt, the question I have to ask, Mr. Prime Minister, the present Prime Minister tell the whole world and the country he has the files. And he said, not paying debt shows a surplus. What is your defense of that? That's one question. Extra time. If you, Mr. former Prime Minister, if you're finding you having in the need to get extra time and it's coming a challenge, what would be your response for future parliament debates in terms of you delivering yourself to the people? And number 3 question. Geothermal always a development problem in terms of management in Nevis. We can listen to Cardinal Powell of Starnes Division, and he can really give you a good history about the geothermal. So the question I want to ask Mr. former Prime Minister, is it right that by not the former government didn't sign, that's why the lack of the geothermal development is not in a development stage? Thanks a lot, Mr. Patches.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks for your input, your questions. We'll get to the questions momentarily, caller. Thank you for holding your live.
Hey, good evening. I want to say our Prime Minister was magnanimous. And that's all I got to say.
Magnanimous in context of?
His performance.
Okay.
Calm, cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for that. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller. Are you there, caller? Are you there, caller?
Good night.
Good night, my lord. How art thou, the Bible man?
How are you, Doc?
I am peaceful. Yourself?
Well, I'm very peaceful. Now, do it to the beat. The 25?
The 20?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
21st, yes.
21st,
right.
yes.
Mr. Patel, I wish you all the best. For 2023. And I wish you happy Christmas when it comes. Monday's Christmas Day.
Okay.
And I wish you all the best. And God blessing. That we and me and you live for 2024.
Okay.
And all the best for 2024. And may the good Lord bless you and keep you in all your endeavor. And Patrick, I am going to tell you, put God at your center of your life more than ever for 2024.
Okay.
And may the good Lord bless you and keep you. And remember this. The word of God in Isaiah 54:17. No weapon that form against you shall prosper.
Mm-hmm.
And every tongue that rises up against you in judgment shall condemn. No, Patrick, I am not holding up the line, but I am going to part of the word for the rest of 2023 to 2024. Patrick, nobody have 2024 in the hand. God said, 11 Second chapter 3, it is the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed, because his compassion faileth not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And every man, let me tell you something, you see, when I think about the goodness of God,
Okay.
Jesus is coming soon. And so the time of the sign is everywhere. But let us look up. Our redemption draweth nigh.
Okay.
So, Mr. Patrick, I wish you Godspeed for 2024. And may the good Lord bless you. And Patrick, when you get up in the morning, give thanks unto the Lord for his good.
Yes, that's correct, my brother.
For his mercy endures forever.
Thank you very much.
He said, let the redeemer of the Lord say so.
Yes, my dear brother.
For you are redeemed from the hands of the enemy. Patrick, have a pleasant night.
Have a pleasant night as well.
And may the good Lord bless you and keep you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I wish you the same.
Until the Lord help us to hear one another in 2024.
We look forward to that.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you as well. I want to thank this caller for holding. Caller, you are live. Hello, caller. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes,
Good evening.
You're live. Good evening.
Oh, hold on. Oh, sorry, the internet a little fluttered, but I want to say good evening to Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, and good evening to you, Ian Patches. Thank you very much for this forum. I also want to say hello to my mom. She knows who this is if she's still up watching. But there are some matters that I did want to address. First, I want to apologize to Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris for the rudeness that was shown to him during his speech. Right is right and wrong is wrong. His time was cut because of the minutes that was interrupted by other members. It should have some order, and we all who in right mind know that was wrong to him. The second matter I want to address is the health system in St. Kitts and Nevis. Everyone knows that it is poor. We all have to come together as the people on the island to level up the matter and give flowers to where flowers are due. Because of the MRI system that was placed in the hospital, who all know that Dr. Timothy Harris was the one to order it or put it in motion, and then this government come and take the credit as if, please, it's a good thing and it can be better. Lastly, my brother, he needs a house, and I think he was promised one in Molyneux for Drama Kelly. Please, if you can help him, still help him. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much for your intervention, sound intervention, and have yourself a wonderful evening. Let's go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Good evening, host.
How are you, my dear brother? Good evening.
Well, and good evening, your guest. And I wish both of you, the host and your guest, a very Merry Christmas and a wonderful 2024 when it comes.
Thank you.
I did not spend a lot of time listening, I can't say more than about 5 minutes, listening to the Prime Minister, the Minister of Finance, do his wrap-up in the budget presentation. But what I did happen to pass the radio and hear, he was kind of knocking the poverty alleviation program. And he was basically saying that the poverty alleviation program does not give, is not a developmental tool for the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. In other words, giving people $500 a month does not help them to develop. And what he's going to do is to introduce this system whereby children between, and adolescents really, between the ages of 5 and 18 will get $1,000, or equivalent of $1,000, 500 of which will go in shares in some public company. I assume, I think he did mention cable TV, and the other 500 would be put on some kind of account or something of the sort. I don't know what, he didn't say what will happen to that 500, whether they have access to it to spend to buy nightie or panties or braziers or whatever. But what I find is that when you look at the economics of the whole thing, that the second option that he came with doesn't really advance the individual too much, because with the poverty alleviation, you're paying a family or an individual $500 a month, which equates to about $6,000 per annum. If you invest in something like the cable TV with $500, I imagine you get dividends of something like 10% or whatever, which amounts to about $50 a year. I could be wrong. Even if they pay 20%, that's only $100 per year. That's a far cry from the $6,000 which they're getting under the poverty alleviation program. So I think Mr. Joe, either he made a miscalculation or he's fooling people once again, because that small dividend from whatever public company is talking about, even if it goes into treasury bills or something of the sort, is not really significant. It's not really developmental. Yes, you can teach people about shareholdings and that kind of thing, but you can do that in school. You don't have to give them money and fool them off and make people think they're getting a world of money from $500 when the dividends are so low. But we are accustomed to being fooled. We love being fooled. So we have you there to fool us. Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you as well. Prime Minister, do you wish to dispose of some of these answers, your answers to some of these questions before they get piled up to right? So one spoke to the files. Go ahead. You probably have them noted. Yes.
Yeah, I have note. If I meet any, then you remind me. I want to thank all the callers for calling in and for the questions which they have posed. I share the view of the first caller that we want the Parliament always to be in service to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. All the people are to be served by the Parliament. He says that people need food to eat, and that is an obvious fact. And what I think he also meant by that is that people are struggling to get food in St. Kitts. A large number of persons cannot afford it. They cannot pay their rent, pay electricity bills, pay water bills, pay transportation to and from work, take care of their family, and including buying adequate, nutritious food for their family. This is something that I think all of us living here, we know that. And the question is, there has been no solution proposed to end the hunger and to move people from where this government pushed them in nice 17 months since taking office into a new bracket of ultra poor, extreme indigence. And so this is a matter of concern. This will be a matter of priority attention for a new government coming forward shortly. The matter of the IMF debt, which was raised by the Rasta Brethren, the debt we quickly paid off about 2016 or thereabout. We inherited a huge debt of $117 million left by the Douglas administration. And as a way of discipline ourselves and remind us that that was a stain on the country, because it was the first time since independence that our country was so broke, its finances had been put in such a parlous state that we had to go a-begging to the IMF. My government paid off that debt. And then, but it's not only that debt that we inherited. We inherited debt of $796 million as part of the debt for land swap arrangement. And that debt remains as a major regulatory concern for the central bank in relation to the St. Kitts and Nevis National Bank. I have had countless meetings with them with respect to that. And I said to them, quite frankly, I am concerned that now you're raising this land for debt swap because we were told that the debt was poofed away. The IMF has raised it almost every year in their report. And we started, I think, in 2018 to pay each year out of our surpluses $100 million to take this debt down, because we appreciated that National Bank was of significant importance, and any financial difficulty which was caused or which hit National Bank will have ramification to all member states of the currency union. That is why in 2022, we paid $205 million to get this debt that we inherited, not created by us, but government is continuous. And we had to do the right thing for the country. We paid $205 million, the largest movement in the land for debt swap. Inherited near $800 million. $800 $100 million, $796 million to be exact, according to the IMF report, that we had been doing and paying down all these debt, but we're still able to maintain our social safety net, still able to record surpluses, still keep the country moving and create employment in the country. The question of the time and the unfairness and how we avoid it going forward is really, I would just wish that the rules of the House be adhered to, and that persons are not allowed to interrupt persons for and points of clarification and those kinds of things, that we stick to the rule. You must only get a point of order if you can prove that a rule is being breached. And if that had happened, I really would not have needed any more time. I asked for time because I was robbed of my time by the excessive, nonsensical interruptions by members opposite. Deliberate strategy to attempt to minimize my ability to communicate with the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, whom we serve and who elected me. And I take objection even to those who are non-elected getting in the crosstalk and getting in behavior which was unbecoming of members of the parliament. The question of the geothermal clearly is an important matter. I'd want to say I've always been supportive of the idea of geothermal, both for Nevis and both for St. Kitts, because little is being talked about that St. Kitts also has the prognosis with respect to geothermal being available here. And we have had some overtures and some work done by a French company and other involvement at that level. And you, Mr. Moderator, our host, had been the Minister of Energy, Public Infrastructure, and you would have some knowledge of that. I want to make it absolutely clear that Mark is being his usual dishonest self and attempting to blame others for his huge failures. I want to make the point very simply that geothermal has been around, or the talk of it, since 2004 under a CCM administration led by Premier Vance Avey. When they started in 2004, it was as part of a sub-regional project involving Dominica, St. Lucia, and Nevis, a project called GeoCaribes, I think it was, way back then. And they did the studies, etc. By 2006, there was a new government in Nevis. The Nevis Reformation Party came to power, and the Nevis Reformation Party had its own vision for geothermal in Nevis, and it brought an end to its involvement with the GeoCaribes project, or the GeoCaribe project. And it, in fact, had an arrangement with the West Indies Power, WIP, to pursue the geothermal arrangement for Nevis. To its credit, the NRP established or brought into being an ordinance on or about 2008-2009 that would provide the legal framework in which geothermal could be pursued for Nevis. Between 2004 and 2022, we had a lot of changes in the government. But between 2006 and 2013, again, we even had difficulties because by 2011-2012, the federal government led by Douglas had pressured the Nevis Island Assembly to, as it were, get rid of the guarantee that it had given to the U.S. Exim Bank to provide support to the geothermal. The government said to them, listen, you could not give a guarantee for this particular indebtedness because we will become contingently liable, and we had one of the highest indebtedness in the world by 2011-2012, saying it was a pariah country in terms of its indebtedness. And Dr. Douglas encouraged Parry as premier then to not pursue the particular arrangement. The guarantee that was provided then to pursue geothermal was withdrawn, and there was no replacement. Now the caller said we could ask Carlisle Powell. He is good because he was one of the prominent people involved in relation to this matter during the period of the NRP. But I will also say, ask Wall Isaac. He was involved, and I spoke to him just this week regarding his involvement and learned some new facts regarding the geothermal operation. One of the things Douglas put forward, I am advised to get Parry to withdraw the support, was to say, I will get the SIDF to fund it. I will get the SIDF to fund this program, and it will be, as it were, an off-the-books arrangement. Because remember, Douglas was of the view that the SIDF was a private foundation, that the government had nothing to do with it. He said as much to the member for number 8, then the Honorable Eugene Hamilton. Don't ask me nothing about it, in his usual style. I don't got nothing to tell you. This is a private thing. And so he said to them, withdraw this guarantee and I will give you a better deal. The truth is, Douglas never kept his word because Douglas had his eyes on another entity that he wanted to get involved in this particular project. That led then to nothing happening. When the CCM went back into office, and I think it was the member for Nevis 11, well, that's France. And you had 2 ministers really in the Ministry of Natural Resources that were involved there. But you also had a third person. Vance told me that he appointed Mark Grantley to be the mouthpiece for geothermal in Nevis because of the involvement of his firm in it, and because Mark was always the one who had been talking about it. Very critical of persons, he wanted it. Vance did not make him a minister, but he became the mouthpiece in relation to that particular project. The truth is, Premier Mark Brantley had not been able to deliver the project. And 18 years, it became a political football. As I said, one party had this person as the key person, another party come in, want another. True to form. When in 2013, the CCM came back to office, they had a thing was the Nevis, NREI, that had taken over, had become their preferred. Nevis Renewable Energy International was selected to pursue. This arrangement, WIP having gone, the CCM proceeded on that basis. By 2019, Mark Brantley had become, well, even before that, the Premier of Nevis. And he continued his interest with respect to the geothermal. He asked me to present a letter of comfort to the CDB. In fact, I was away when he asked me. I spoke to him, I spoke to the senior minister, Van Samry, about it. And I was advised to request of him a full accounting for the geothermal project. Because persons who had been part of the administration was aware that apart from excessive legal fees that they knew about in relation to the geothermal, nothing had happened. Nothing was happening with geothermal. The usual smoke and mirrors, blame somebody. Nothing was happening except the legal fees had to be paid. Who was the beneficiary? Let the insiders speak to that particular matter. And in fact, when I asked Mark to give me the report, Mark gave a number of reasons. He gave the history. He didn't give a breakdown of the expenditure, but he did say that one of the deficiencies in the approach, one of the deficiencies of the early approach was an absence of technical advice on the Nevis Island administration side, and that he had found assistance from the U.S. State Department of Energy. Now, if a project is lacking in technical advice, no wonder you can't find good and ready people willing to become involved with you in that particular project. And so they went ahead, they signed the arrangement with the Nevis, let me get the name correct, Nevis Renewable Energy International was selected to do the bid in 2014, giving them the right to develop geothermal. By 2015, according to Mark's report to me, the Nevis utility company Nevlec signed a power purchase agreement with NREI in October of 2015. NREI, according to him, writing in what he was writing to me on this matter, he said that these people were finalizing to commence the build out of the project, etc. And between that period, really, up until now, nothing substantive had happened because the project had been bedeviled by the internal politics of Nevis, changing from one person to another. It was bedeviled by the withdrawal of the guarantee by the Nevis Island administration under pressure and inducement from the federal Labour government at that particular moment in time. Having examined the matter, sent the matter to the financial secretary, I promptly issued a letter of comfort to the CDB, having regard to the promise made and the word of Mark Brantley that, listen, we will not expose the federal entity as a result of this. He's a lawyer. I trusted his word then. So I have given fullest support to geothermal. Wrote a letter of support, requested, and I did it after getting the technical input because I am a careful person in terms of my responsibility to the public. Nobody will come, fling a letter across my desk and say, sign for me. I am trained in matters of accounting and finance, but the rules require. On legal matters, I get the advice of the Attorney General. On financial matters, I get the input of the Financial Secretary. And that is what I did. And so I sent the letter. I am hearing Mark said, well, in 2022, another letter was sent. Well, how many letters do you need to convince people that this project is viable? In my budget delivered in 2021, budget adjust for 2022, at paragraph 68, I made clear that we were supportive of geothermal as part of the broad agenda for the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. I have never wavered. I've always been among the strongest in my support to those who were proposing geothermal. And indeed, Mark Brantley lied when Mark Brantley communicated that we were competing with Nevis. Mark Brantley was in my cabinet when Vance Henry was my trusted senior minister. And you were there, I think, too, Mr. Mark. When we had the discussion about how this will work, do we ignore the potential that St. Kitts has, or we pursue vote? And Vance, being the statesman and the wise man that he was, said, listen, fellas, there is no need for any either-or situation. These projects are not mutually exclusive. We could very well pursue geothermal in St. Kitts and geothermal on Nevis. And that was the agreement of principle which the cabinet had. It was like saying, well, St. Kitts is pursuing tourism, so Nevis must not pursue it. Nonsense. It's like saying St. Kitts, Nevis is pursuing movie making, so St. Kitts must not be part of it. There is more than enough for both. And therefore, there was no competition except in the mind of the devious person. And Vance saw through the all talk and no more be, fraud and no more be. And Vance brought wisdom to my cabinet. He said, let both project go through. So there was never an issue of competition. And I am saying, once a letter comes to me, because we have a pattern and the protocol, and any matter of finance, it will have to go to the financial secretary. The cabinet secretary knows that. My personal assistant knows that. The PSs knows that. The PSs knew that. And that is how we operated. So if anything came to me, anything further, which you would wonder, well, why every minute somebody need a letter? Is it that they don't trust the NIA? Why they were requesting repeatedly for the same thing? But what was happening also was that the dynamics were changing. And by 2015, the IMF in its report was saying to our country, you now need to revisit again geothermal in light of the changing scenario as it relates to oil prices, etc. Because that had implication, in one hand, I guess, in terms of the competitiveness. Mark Brantley is not telling the truth, but we have become accustomed to that. Mark Brantley, by 2022, had been the creator of mischief within the team unity government. Mark Brantley had sent communication off to the CDB, I was aware of, having spoken to the financial secretary, and attempted to work around the government, because by that time he was undermining the government. By that time he was spreading the falsehood that it was an illegitimate government, and it could never be, because it was a government that was put there constitutionally and was working in the ambit of the law. And so he did not have the courage to come properly to the federal entity to seek support, which had always been granted to him. And the last time it was granted was in 2019. And when I gave him, he told me, I will always remember this, because you have done what no other leader in the Federation has done for Nevis. He told me he will never forget the Labour government, because I didn't even know. He told me it was a Wednesday when the checks for the people of the Nevis Island administration was bounced under the Douglas administration. And he told me he will never forget it. It was one of the darkest days for the people of Nevis. And I agree it must have been hurtful for civil servants and non-establishment workers to go to the bank to be told that there was no check or their check will bounce. So I have given full support, not just to geothermal. I have been the first Prime Minister to make provision for Nevis year after year. Nigh over $500 million of support. The first time Nevis could rely upon budgetary allocations from St. Kitts and Nevis was under my watch as Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. 25 million, 45 million, and in 2022, 66 million. Mark Brantley broke up a government over fair share, and in the end got not 1 cent more. And now in his dying moments has come to say that, well, geothermal, after being stalled, after being going through the Nevis Island politics, after its guarantee, the guarantee of BNIA was withdrawn, all them time I not in anything to do with these things. I am just a patriot whose father is from Nevis, whose mother is from St. Kitts, who as a public official does the very best that I can. So I gave and I gave to Nevis like never before. When we introduced the PAP, Nevis get its fair share. When we introduced the peace, they ask and receive for their own local administration of the peace program in Nevis. A former high official of the police force was in charge of it. And then they lied. They lied in order to bring a breach of trust against the government and said they didn't know about the peace program that did such marvelous thing for the people of Nevis and for the people of St. Kitts. So this noise now about not getting a letter and Joe sign a letter, well, Joe is not Dr. Harris. Joe is an inexperienced person, not knowing with whom he's dealing. I know what Premier Vance Emery went through. I was with Vance the Saturday before he left this country. The cabinet secretary was with me and Senator Wendy Phipps. They all were with me. And Vance bear his heart out. The pain of the deception and the callousness of Mark Brantley. And he told me things I cannot repeat because he told me in trust and in good confidence. That moment, this moment of deception over a letter, when you had a letter before, can't deny it.
Well,
why would he keep that in mystery and others just man up to the fact that you have failed to deliver? You would have learned as a result of that failure. Because failure isn't bad all the time. You can learn for it and use that experience now to deliver geothermal. But importantly, again, going back to the reports, when they started the geothermal was being pegged at 60 million US. By 2020 to 2023, the cost to pursue geothermal in Nevis is 150 million US dollars, 400 million EC. $400 million EC. I can't just, if somebody send me a letter say I can sign that, that should be going to Financial Secretary and going to the Cabinet, and there have been no official response of which I am aware coming to me in relation to this matter, no draft submission and no formal advice on this matter, to the best of my knowledge, from the Financial Secretary. But in any event, in 2022, it was when Mark undermined the very government that he claimed, that Alexis claimed, that Eric claimed publicly had done the very best for the people of Nevis. I advise the people of Nevis, you know the man Mark Brantley. Treat anything Mark Brantley says with a grain of salt. And if it is not the geothermal project, the same can be said with respect to the Vance Emery Airport. Nothing has happened but talk. And that is what Mark is good at.
I can just add in relation to the geothermal and the late Vance Winkworth Emery, because I sat in that meeting with the then CDB president, and Mark Vance, beg your pardon, in his gracious style, did say, and these were his exact words, both projects will complement each other. Those were his exact words. We want to go back to the lines, Prime Minister, but dispense of the health system question quickly.
Well,
Lady spoke to the MRI
the health
and the
system
PAP.
is going to the dogs. In the parliament, for example, raised the fact for a prolonged period of almost a year. Mary Charles is without a pharmacist. I gather that there have been other resignations of senior persons. The MRI hasn't come, although I had put $5 million for it. Although Dr. Joe had taken credit, the MRI, I should say, is not yet operational. Talk. And he had said it will come in a couple of weeks when he got in office. No truth. And he just speaks glibly, really. And so that goes to what Howell says about the PAP program. PAP is not a development tool. Well, PAP is a social safety net, and social safety net is part of a caring program of development of the country. Social safety nets are required to ensure, as the country progresses, that no one is left behind. Not the vulnerable, not the poor, not the old grandmother, not the disabled person. So the gentleman in Nevis, the double amputee, who they took off the PAP program, that should have never happened if you had your eye on all-inclusive development, and that the vulnerable, the old, the young people are being protected. I support Mr. Howell's thesis that $500 water share not going to take you anywhere. It's nice to say that you have shares, but the dividends that you'll get year after year, in 50 years, you really still don't have any money. The amount to start that particular fund is much too small to have meaningful consequence. And if Dr. Juno that knows that PAP had no development value, why did he promise that he will give the people of St. Kitts $1,500? And instead of delivering on his promise, he is now removing people who are in need. A lady 84 years got thrown off the PAP. Other people with children in McKnight, in Old Road, across the length and breadth of the country, taken off of the PAP without proper notice. Elderly people. And then they call in making them puppy show. And then they say, we will give you a voucher. What voucher you talking about? Voucher can't compare to $500. $500 is $6,000 each year being spent in the economy, helping people to buy food, which the first caller spoke about, helping the grandparent to get her own medication, and those have gone up significantly over the last 16 years. $500 was the only stable source of income for many persons coming out of the COVID environment in which we are in. God bless this PAP program. And you have done great damage to thousands of people all around the country by just ripping them off, even before we have recovered from the PAP program. And the people must remember this. You have taken from them what you did not give them. You have made life harder for them. And they have to ensure that you be a short-term, one-term government for the sake of our democracy, for the sake of our development agenda. The $500 was for those working poor, was to bridge the gap between minimum wage and livable wage. What is the livable wage now? The official from the Labor Department thinks that it should be $2,500 or something like that. Even with the increase that will come, you're still not close to that. PAP is still needed.
Okay, well, quickly before we go back to the lines, I have quite a few callers waiting. The lady spoke up to the possibility of a house in Molyneux. Is that still a possibility? Quickly.
Well, certainly I can't speak for this government, but a return of the PLP in leadership in government, we will have genuine solutions, and her brother or family member clearly will be part of the people that we will cater to. And that has been the target group that the NHC really should be catering to, those at low income. Instead, the NHC is building a house for an ambassador. Building a house in Sandy Point right now. Callous disregard for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and for the poor people in particular.
If you just join us, my Straight Dog family, we have with us our third Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Sylvester Harris. We have no limits on time, so we'll take all your calls. We'll read all your emails. In the meanwhile, we go back to the lines at 10:21. Caller, thank you for holding your live.
Yeah. Good evening, Dr. Ian Patches Liburd. And good evening. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
I said your humble servant.
Right. And good evening, third Prime Minister, Dr. Harris. Now, my question tonight is, government is continuous. And what I have seen with this new administration, the former administration, which you were the Prime Minister of, you are leave a lot of things in the pipeline to be finished.
Yes.
And this government block up the pipe with everything in there, and he want to say he doing everything new and different and reset.
Yes.
Now he spoke badly about the wind farm, and now look at him. He going back to eat his vomit because he has to continue now with the same solar wind farm. Now my question is this: you all spent a lot of money in preparation to build a new Basque High School.
Yes.
And I want to know what will become of that money, because he abandoned the continuing of the high school and he going to break down the old grammar school building and decide that he going to build it up there by the contaminated area. And if you don't know, that building that they're going to build back up by the old grammar school, it will cost more money than if it continue the new Basque High School that you all had prepared. So I want to know what will become of that taxpayers' money that was paid to the planning people and everybody who started something up there. What will become of that? I'll listen up there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your input. This email reads, the Attorney General, in his joyful and exuberant mood, opened the can of worms in the House when he said, Madam Speaker, my 72-year-old aunt, who was on the other side, told me that the Labour budget is being the best she had ever heard. I want to ask these just come fly-by-night Labourites, especially the AG, a simple question. Which law firm in St. Kitts was vehemently opposed to Premier Bradshaw's taking the sugar lands from the few landowners in the name of the people? For all the people of the Federation, thank God for lawyers like Limor, Dr. Henry Stagumba Brown, Fitzroy Bryant, and then DPP Odell Adams for successfully toppling that said law firm in the High Court presided over by Justice Glasgow in the first instance to give the lands to government and by extension the people of the Federation. These distinguished and esteemed lawyers ought to be given the Federation's highest award for successfully rescuing the sugar lands from the AG and his legal associates for the people of the Federation led by Premier Bradshaw. It is ironic now to hear the Attorney General conveniently touting Labour, Labour, Labour. They don't fool this Labour dog, reads that email. And we haven't really addressed the audit report and the fiscal performance in any detail or much in terms of the surplus and deficit budgets Prime Minister. Perhaps we can perhaps, in responding to that question, also look at that. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hello, good night. Good night.
Good night, sir.
Hi, how are you, Ambassador?
I am peaceful. Yourself?
I'm very peaceful and enjoying this. Let me extend it to you and to former PM a good night. And also happy belated birthday to him as well, and happy 30th year of being in the Parliament. Now, my quick question is in relation to the population census report, because I am of the view that will be very critical in deciding any future boundary decision that is taken. And so I want the former PM to address what's the status on that. And has he received anything Parliament where the census report is concerned? And that's just my question.
Okay. Do you want to dispense up those two questions?
Well, I would just say, yes, the Minister of Sustainable Development really is the one who ought to account for the status of the census. It has been very much delayed. Recall it was to have been a census in 2021, started execution a bit late, but by now, having regards to some previous ministerial statement, the census should have been completed. Unofficially, I'm advised it is not yet fully, I should say it is not yet ready. And I am not aware that the minister has formally presented that.
Okay.
The other question was, could you help me in that one?
About the taxpayers' money spent on the Barnsley High School, and what can be done about it. But it's strange but true. I haven't queued up the soundbite, but the Minister of Education has suggested that they're going to use the designs from the school, and to use his words, to tweak the designs. So I wonder if the designs didn't cost any money anyway, because he said nothing was done to verify or to justify the money spent at that school. But I don't know if you want to address the question in terms of the taxpayers' money just being wasted.
Well, clearly it is a waste. It shows lack of thorough thought processes of the government. Because here you come into office with arrangements having been properly made to have a new Barnsley school away from the contaminated site. It's all housing above the park. And the government having spent significant sums in designs, close to perhaps $7 million, in environmental impact assessments, at least 2 reviews were undertaken. So important did we treat the matter of the concern with regard to water and the aquifer, that we ensure that persons of the highest level were engaged to do these particular surveys, and substantial other sums. So again, it shows the dishonesty within the Labour administration when they have all the documents, they are available to them, and they attempt to say nothing was done, but $21 million was spent. Well, how they got the design, which the Minister of Education says is still in the Ministry of Education. And he went further to say that he invited others to come and to see what improvements they could suggest to this new design, so that he could apply that to go back to the old space. So it means then that there was value. There was, and there still remains, value in the design. And I don't have to say much more, because I think the member for number 5, who was the Minister of Education at the material time, gave an account of this in the Parliament, and he was also the Minister of Public Works at the material time with respect to the implementation at the new site. The project, of course, was held up because we got into COVID, and when COVID comes, the country went into lockdown, and things basically couldn't go ahead in the usual way, not just in St. Kitts, but all over the world. But this would be a masterpiece of a project looking way into the future and assisting in people in St. Kitts and Nevis have a good educational facility, swimming pool, and all of those things involved, along with the customary recreational facilities. That was what we had envisaged for a modern secondary school for St. Kitts and Nevis.
This email reads, good evening, Patches. A point of order or point of disagreement, debate or argument with this email. During the presentation by the member for number 7, the member for number 1 turned what was supposed to be the mecca of orderly and honorable debate into a spectacle of disorderly argument. Every so-called point of order by member Maynard was in effect points of disagreement. Any other member using his or her own time or at the very least, the mover in his winding up could utilize their respectful opportunity to disagree with the points raised by the member from number 7. Instead, that segment of the assembly session was reduced to a point-for-point argument with the interrupter making long speeches, thus robbing the member for number 7 of his time, and then to add insult to injury and in a display of lack of sportsmanship, refused to give support to the request for additional time to simply wrap up. Horrible, 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 reads this email. This other email reads, Patches, it's good to see that we have at last got government backbenchers in Parliament. Peculiarly, all of them are sitting in the opposition benches. Only in St. Christopher reads this email. This other email reads, thank you. Good evening, Ambassador. Greetings and blessings to the Straight Talk family. Thanks very much for inviting former Prime Minister Dr. Harris to Straight Talk to speak the truth regarding his reply to the budget, where he was interrupted by some members many times. It was embarrassing. Dr. Harris is one of the longest serving members of Parliament, and to think that he was being disrespected in that way and denied his allotted time is a travesty. Thanks to you, there's a forum where we can speak the truth. Dr. Harris, please continue to keep us honest. My family and I wish the Straight Talk family blessing and best wishes for Christmas and the New Year. Please be safe for Sugar Mass 52. One love, reads this other email. Patches, the harbour was looking good today again with the 4 of Lindsay Grand tourist boats docked at Patches' Pier. And by the way, Patches, how come Just Come Marshall was awarded a prize for doing nothing in tourism except to tour the world joyriding, and Grant, who did such an amazing job working assiduously as a competent tourism minister, brought over 1 million passengers to our shores, an unparalleled historic feat, unheard of, and was never given the recognition as Marshall. Prime Minister Drew said she was recognized for bringing JetBlue to St. Kitts. That is nonsense mixed with rubbish and baloney, because everyone knows that the process started with a grant to bring JetBlue, reads this other email. And this other email reads, the Attorney General is, I think we read that before, I'm sorry about that, my Straight Dog family. Austin, Edinburgh, reads this other email. One of the numerous advisors to Dr. Drew, and one who can be considered as the Marxist German Dr. Goebbels, who was the Minister of Propaganda under Adolf Hitler, and once said the bigger the lie, the more people believe. Edinburgh appeared yesterday morning on ZIZ on a political program called The Edge, created by Dr. Drew some months ago to dispel the facts and spread his propaganda. Nevertheless, I want to ask Edinburgh how come he cannot remember that Harris paid a double salary and still gave an increase to civil servants. Dr. Harris, please provide the year for us when it was done. Thank you. Read this email. Good night, Patches. I believe Harris and Sean are still a powerful political tandem despite Team Unity broke up. If this is what the people of the country want, these two honorable men will have to make up their minds to let bygones be bygones. We want Team Unity back. Any response to those emails in the meanwhile, Prime Minister?
Thank you. The time is running out. I want to say really,
we have time. We have time. I can give you your extra time for interruption. Don't worry.
I would say that I hold no animosity. A caller said bygones must be bygones. Certainly they do not weigh at my heart and my mind as they would have during 2022. And I have been courteous to all of them. Whenever I meet them, I greet them and so on and so on. Because that is me. The Lord is my keeper and my protector, and so I don't hold the animosity. And I think each of them, whenever we meet, would say that I have always extended cordial welcome. I would speak to Sean if and when needed, etc. And I would think that he also feels comfortable if he needs to say something, he can say. I mean, it's politics, and we understand how it is. And so the future, I don't know what the future holds, but I want the best for St. Kitts and Nevis. And the construct which I worked so hard to maintain over the last 7.5 years was an all-inclusive one. Come, all compatriots, help me build a St. Kitts and Nevis of which we all could be proud. And clearly over the last 7.5 years, all of us were proud. We were proud that we moved the country from the point of being Devil's Island to having one of the lowest rates of homicides in this country over the last 20 or so years. We were proud of the fact that we could hold our head high because St. Kitts ranked well in terms of its fiscal performance. We had the strongest fiscal house under my watch. We cleared the IMF debt. We paid down in the land for debt swap, which still remains a troubling matter for St. Kitts and Nevis National Bank, a matter of grave concern. And we did all that while building out a robust social safety net that was sustainable, having regard to our own fiscal buffers. When we entered the pandemic, we had the strongest fiscal buffer, not just in the OECS, not just in CARICOM, but in the wider Americas. That is no small achievement. We did not borrow $1, while we spent nearly $300 million to help us maneuver through the pandemic, one of the worst of its kind in the last 100 years. So there's quite a lot of achievements of which we can all be proud of citizens and St. Kitts and Nevis. There's still a long journey to continue, and all of us who are able must join hands and take this march to make St. Kitts and Nevis the best place that it can be. And I'm looking forward to working with a large group of persons to advance this country that I love and to improve the quality of life for all the people, not just on St. Kitts, but on Nevis. And my years as Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis brought the best results for the people of Nevis. And every leader in Nevis have said that publicly, and they are on record. And I am happy of all that have been accomplished. I would have wished that we were able to go full term and deliver more. And who in this country at this particular moment would not have some remorse to see the fine work that the team Unity did has now gone, as it were, way backwards. We have retrogressed on the administration that is really a fake in terms of governance and fake in terms of believing really in the people, in their empowerment. So again, we must clasp hands, we must work together, we must exchange ideas, some of which we are doing tonight. And we must take a stand together in the new year with our demonstrations, our march, our community activism to ensure at the quickest possible time we have a new government in place that will take St. Kitts and Nevis to a better place.
Okay, we're going to take, let's say, 2 more calls, and then I'll have you give you a wrap. Prime Minister, it's now 10:41. The well over time. A caller. I'm going to guide you by the rules of brevity. Are you there, caller?
Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you again. First of all, I must say good night again. Mr. Prime Minister, it's good to see that you are waking up and you are venting the gag that you were under, the silence. But I will say, I realize you are ruffling feathers now. I wish you could have started that long time ago, because that's what the people needed to be to hear. I'm glad to hear that, because truth is truth. And I will hope you will, next time you get back into Parliament, you will actually do some ruffling of feathers. And these dishonest behavior that the Speaker and the interruption you had, you got to be more oomph about it. So I will like to see more of that. I like to see the aggression. And look out for the people, and you will have me on board. You know who I am. Number 7. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on board now, and we will talk and work together for the good of the people of St. Christopher and Nevis. And bring all your friends and family.
Okay, we go back to the lines. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Yes, could you turn your equipment?
Yeah, good night, Patrice.
Yeah, how about though? Just move away from your equipment to something, getting the feedback.
Yeah.
I want the whole world to hear you. Good night.
Good night, Patrice.
Good night, my
Good night, Mr. PM.
Good night,
Good night, Mr. Harris.
Good night, good night.
Hello.
All the very best.
Yeah, I'm saying good night to him.
Yes, he did say good night.
I want to know when you. Hello.
He did say good night.
Yes, I want to know when you have a house assembly and you interrupt, doesn't they give you back your time?
Well, they should. They should. I wasn't giving back my time.
He said they should.
Yeah, they're supposed to give him back a time. I know when he asks for time, they don't want to give him back, because then the speaker started to say in chapter something there that you have 30 minutes, extra 30 minutes, and he only asked for 10, and they didn't give him, because that clown from number 3, dear, every minute he interrupt him, and they did not. I do not like how they treat him in the house.
Okay.
But that lady that they have house, the speaker, just how the first one disappear, we disappear and can't catch it. It's just so she, because there is very unfair. There's very unfair. But don't worry them, Harris. They just like a bunch of coals that we expect from me dust, from me bag of coals, and I'm with you all the way. So don't even stick them on.
Okay.
I don't. Just how Martin went on with in the house there when they was closing it. Just so that girl going on, and I think they were supposed to. I think they're now supposed to have an election to get for the speakers of the house, because they're going on like somebody elect them. And that's not right. I don't like how they just behave in the house.
Okay.
So that's my little piece for now. Everybody have a nice holiday. And may God bless each every one of us. Okay, bye.
Okay, may God bless you as well. Thanks for your intervention. Caller, you're live. Hello, caller.
Good night, my dear beloved brother, night PM.
Who is my sister?
Oh, yes, I am so good, thank God. Now, our parliament is supposed to be a respectable and a decent place for discussion of the country's debate. They're going into the parliament, everybody was talking each other. They're laughing at the thing like you're in a fish market. Calling for top on the feet, somebody else behind the car. It sounds really bad. Another thing, the truth hot now. It's hot. When Minister Harris talk the thing, man, and he talk the truth, he say $170 million pay off here, man. And he talk and he talk burn them. Then I want him finish. Then I want he never finish it talk. He never finish, you know, let him finish. Oh, you tell me that. You tell me that this pious woman. Every minute, I never hear this in my life. All the years I done this in Parliament. That's one interruption, minister interrupt for 20 minutes. He alone take 20 minutes out of the man's time. And she ain't gonna give him back 5 minutes to wrap up. She can't give 5 minutes to wrap up. Because in the IC1, she committed there, but she owned it. The country, the place belongs to the country is ours. She can't do what she like. Jenny, she house. That's the government house. And she out of order. The woman who nobody vote for will get up and talk about how she going to talk about 20 years and with that talking for a debate and budget debate. How you going to get across the point if you don't mix the past and the present together? You got to get them together, put them together to get the point across. Then I want him to talk. But everything them, talk as you like, you win your seat. She want to hardly say, and nobody vote for her.
Okay.
And he was telling her, she out of order. And this, you see how Curtis Martin disappeared? She got disappear the same way.
Okay.
And when no respect from the public. I walk a car out and about to peace and nobody answer him. That's where she gonna end up.
Okay.
Anyway.
Thanks a lot.
My PM, everybody loves you. Regardless to what they say. And this here give an eye opener to the country. Everybody talking about it. You go in the supermarket, people talking about you. Everywhere people talk about you. You did well for the country. Everybody was saying how you're bad. You're a bad man. But they can't name one bad thing you do. All you did was make the country run proper and well.
Okay.
You lost the seat. You lost the country. You lost the seat.
The government.
And you left $688 million in the treasury. And you was so bad. You were so bad. No matter with them.
Okay.
The clock ticking. Ticking. Anyway, I'll go on.
Thanks.
Have a good night, yeah. Safe journey home. And my brother, take care of yourself.
Yes, my
Merry Christmas to every one of you. And a white and prosperous year for 2024. God bless.
God bless you as well. And perhaps that's the way we're going to end these calls for the night. This emailer writes, our last email here, listening from Chicago. Good evening, Sir Patches and Prime Minister Harris. Patches, can you please look into getting both Ministers Sean and Harris on your program sometime next year? God's willing, please. Happy and safe New Year to all. Perhaps you can respond to that, Prime Minister, in your wrap. An emailer earlier asked a question about the year you pay the increase simultaneously with the payment of a double salary, and we have not touched the sad issue of crime and homicide in our country. But sad to say, there was our 31st murder today over there in Nevis, and that brings all told 39 in the last 16 or 17 months. So perhaps in your wrap you can address that as well. And your final words, Prime Minister.
Thank you. My final words would be imbued with gratitude to all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis for their love, their consideration, and support for me over the 30 years of my career as a Member of Parliament and a public official in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to thank them for the encouragement, in particular the good people of St. Christopher 7, and to say I will serve you to the best of my God-given abilities. And I invite all the constituents and all the people to continue to pray for me, to continue to lend me of their advice, their ideas for the ongoing development, not just of Constituency 7, but of the country. I issue an invitation to all to become part of the People's Labour Party. We are a party that welcomes all. We are a party with a philosophy of inclusion, and we are going to work to ensure the best St. Kitts and Nevis that we can have. I owe a special thank you to those who called when the aberration took place in the Parliament and I was not allowed an opportunity to wrap up properly. I want to say thank you to the hundreds of you, both from within and outside of St. Kitts and Nevis, who reached out and gave a word of encouragement. And even to the callers tonight who spoke on that particular matter, I am happy to know that the love for democracy lingers in the heart of every Kittitian and Nevisian. And so we must protect it, and we must always endeavor to do better. We must ensure that we leave St. Kitts and Nevis better than we would have left it. And I hope that the backlash which the government side would have received from their irresponsible actions in attempting to interrupt me, robbing me of my time, and then denying me the opportunity to wrap up appropriately, that they would exercise better judgment and better wisdom going forward. I want to extend condolences to the family of the gentleman who lost his life so brutally in the incident in Nevis. Violence has again raised its ugly head in our country. I start from different philosophy from some who believe that you must wait until things become so grave, so outrageous, that a new record is set. I start from the underpinning that the loss of one life through violence, and in particular through gun violence, is one too many. And so whether it is 1 or 10 or 31 or the 35 that we had in 2011, we all must condemn each brutality, each loss of life, because the pain lingers in the hearts and the minds of their families, now without one member. And that pain and suffering can become the cause for persons to begin to take matters in their own hands, especially when the police fails to deliver and the justice system fails to deliver in accordance with the expectation of the law-abiding citizens. We want a better country, and we must work hard for it, and we must stand up to defend and protect St. Kitts and Nevis. So my final appeal is that for the new year, in fact, starting tonight, starting tomorrow, let us pledge that we will stand up for our rights, we will fight for our rights, we will fight for justice, and we will work from the framework that an injustice, the victimization of one person, is one too many in our country. Denial of people of their jobs, the denial of their promotion, the denial of business opportunity that is being pursued by the Jew administration must come to an end. And it will come to an abrupt end if we all work together and defend our rights, and we respond to these outrages against our democracy that are taking place in our country now. To those who are facing Christmas, with no food on their table, to those who are facing Christmas, burdened by ill health and no money to pay for it, I pray that God will take you through. And I will pray that He will take our country to this better place, a better place where all of us can be. But as we contemplate all these difficulties, we must remember the Savior Jesus. He is our healer, our protector, and our friend. So best wishes to all of St. Kitts and Nevis, and best wishes to my brother, friend, colleague, Ambassador Ian Patrice Liburd. May God be with you, and may He make you strong and resilient going forward. You're a champion for democracy. Thank God that He gave you, and bless St. Kitts with you, who could help us now when the government has locked out the opposition from radio, from TV, have taken over with FM, that there can be, thanks to social media and thanks to your leadership, an alternative voice being heard in support of democracy and support of justice and the well-being of St. Kitts and Nevis. All the very best to you and your extended family and loved ones.
I thank you, my dear brother and friend and Prime Minister, and all I can say, I wish you the reciprocal, and it would be remiss of me if I didn't play these two sound bites without comment. And I have about 3 calls lined up, and this one caller, I don't know if you can use 10 seconds. I'm going against the grain of my own thinking, but can you use 10 seconds, caller, quickly? Can you?
Yeah, Mr. Liburd. Yeah, how you doing, man? Good evening, man.
Good. I'm out of time. I'm going to give you 10 seconds. That's the most I can offer you. How's that?
Okay, quickly, with Carnival coming up, right? I want to ask the Prime Minister, if he was to use the Carnival as a medium to indicate how he feels about the performance of the government, what specific theme would he bring as a, if he was to have like a troupe, what type of suit in terms of a costume he would wear during the Carnival?
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to play this soundbite because we didn't touch the burden issue of water, but I want to play this soundbite as well, Prime Minister.
Prior to now, between 2015 and 2022, zero, in fact, negative amount of water was provided to the system.
And this was from the former Assistant Manager and Water Engineer.
My name is Charles Paris of the Water Service, St. Kitts Water Services Department, and today we are here at
Could you increase the volume?
Shadwell 1 we just brought on stream with roughly 350 gallons per minute, pumping 500,000 gallons per day to the Olives reservoirs. Before the on-stream of this well, we were taking water from the aquifer with two wells pumping to Olives. Now with this one, we can send the water from here straight to Olives and serve the Bastia area from Olives, from the water that we have here at Shadwell 1. So bringing this well on stream has given us some relief in that we are able now to use those 2 wells in the Bastia aquifer and channel them to Morn Peak that serves Bird Rock, the Greater Bastia, and parts of Frigate Bay and the Southeast Peninsula.
I thought it would be remiss of me if I did not play those, and I know you've made your rap, but I know you're a man out of words either. I don't know if you can use whatever time you want, nonetheless, to answer that question about the carnival and touch a little bit on the water as well.
Well, the carnival matter, I will share some views on that, because there are so many things that you can use. You can to depict what is happening in the country, the loss of faith, the crisis of confidence in the government, the lack of honesty. But more important really for me would be the water issue, and to thank the official who basically gave again the lie to the pronouncement by the member for number 3 that we did nothing. In fact, all that is being done now is being done because there was a team unity government. And I want them to recall that 20 years before team unity was a Labour government, and the problems endure. But we had taken steps. We delivered Shadwell 1. We had basically invested in Shadwell 2. There was a need for some remediation works. COVID came. Cromwell Williams recommended to the cabinet that we delay the remediation work at Shadwell 2, and we proceeded to Keon. We paid 1.6 million EC, equivalent of 600 US, to get Keon well drilled. And we understand if we are lucky, we will get between 700 to 1 million gallons of water per day, we are told. That is the work of team unity. While we were in government, we had an agreement with the UAE to deliver 2 desalination plants for St. Kitts and Nevis. That is the work of team unity. So all that they are doing, I want even to rename and to have another ceremony, another groundbreaking of what ground had always been broken on. You see the record of team unity, and we are happy really to see that our work extended beyond our time. The good deeds are living long and will live after team unity. So again, I'm happy to have had independent corroboration. What was the name of the gentleman for the record?
Charles Parrish. That was the former engineer.
Charles Parrish, former water engineer, lead official there. So again, commendations to all, and commendations to you, because Shadwell 1 basically came about under your tenure around maybe 2018 or thereabout. Shadwell 2 also started while you were also the Minister of Public Infrastructure. But COVID came and other things intervened. So I'm happy for what we have done, and I'm happy for those who have good memory and do not allow the policy of revisionism that is dishonestly being pursued by the Jew administration to take hold and sink its Nevis. Truth shall set us free.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Yes, and Shadwell 2, that's the well that's been plugged since 2018. So again, I don't know why they lie, but that's the way we're going to end it, my Straight Dog family. My time is done. We're going to run. I want to thank Prime Minister Harris for giving us of his time and all these years in service to the people. Not just the people of number 7, but the people of the entire Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I want to thank Almighty God for guiding our conversation tonight, as always. I want to thank you, the callers, you, the emailers, you, the many listeners, the thousands of you. Remember, you are the ones who make Straight Talk, and for that reason, I say a big, big thank you. Have yourselves a wonderful Christmas, and we look forward to joining you, connecting with you in the new year, 2024, and we trust and hope we'll have a safe carnival, and we look forward for a healthy and prosperous new year. Thanks again, Dr. Harris. Thank you, my people. And remember that whatever your mind conceive, that you will achieve. But first of all, you got to believe. So when you wake in the morning, thank God for the morning light and thank Him for taking you through the night. And my Straight Dog family, keep moving on. Bye-bye until we connect on, I think, the second week in the new year. I think the first Monday, I think it's in January. Some may, I think, around the 8th of January. But until that time, my Straight Dog family, be good to yourselves and to all whom you meet. Have yourselves a wonderful carnival and a wonderful Christmas as well. Bye-bye until we connect next year.
Wherever my mind can see that I will achieve. praises for taking me safely through the night, for the rest of food and loving care, and for my mother's breath of life that's got me here. So whatever my mind conceive that I will achieve, you better believe, because I do the things I should, be to my brethren kind and good.